folks who, hello, welcome to our first Climate Solutions Caucus meeting of the 2024 session. For folks who are able to attend, in September/October, we had a couple of Zoom meetings where representatives and senators discussed ideas, priorities, things that they were witnessing in their community, in particular related to all of the storm events, but also related to challenges with, energy and change, et cetera. So what we've drafted, the Climate Solutions Caucus leadership, hearing all of that feedback and also looking and speaking with many of you regarding all of the bills that you've introduced. What we've drafted here, it is a draft, is Vermont General Assembly Climate Solutions Caucus 2024 priorities. I did bring a bunch of copies in case anybody wants a copy. They're right here. And today is an opportunity to talk through some of these. We're not going to, particularly since we're missing one of our membership, our leadership membership members, Senator Perch. We're going to hold off, and the first step is to present this to you all and get your feedback, and then we will move forward with next steps in terms of really clearly and carefully rolling out these priorities. So that's agenda item number one. Agenda item number two is to talk about ways to get involved. Last year, we had committee representatives who helped report back to the caucus about what was being discussed in committee related to climate issues. And also, committee representatives to the caucus would talk to caucus members about concerns with certain bills, so that if we could, if you're not on the committee of jurisdiction and you have a particular interest in a particular bill, we could try and get some resources to you to answer some of your questions or flesh out some of your ideas. So that was a second thing that the committee representatives did. So we wanted to go through that since we're starting this second year of the biennium at a running speed. We also wanted to reach out and say from the five leaders, so the co-chair is myself, Senator White, and then we have Mike Rice. Thank you so much. We also have Molly Burke. There you are. And then we have Senator Perchlik, who's unable to be here today. So if there are any of you that are particularly interested in getting more actively involved in the leadership team, this is an opportunity to have you reach out to any of the five of us with your interests. So that's the second agenda item, is how to get more actively involved. Third agenda item, and we should have shared this, but this is an open caucus meeting. If there are advocates in the room, this will be an opportunity for you to introduce yourself, state your name, what you represent, the organization you're from, just so that the various reps and senators who may not see your face in the committee room often are aware of who you are. And then fourth is to talk a little bit about how we want to move forward with future meetings. Obviously, given today, clearly a 12 o'clock start is, very likely every other Thursday. I'm being completely facetious. But, there's so much you can pack in to a 12 to 12:50 meeting that might also start at 12:10. So really would be interested in your feedback. Last year, we used these meetings in large part to have people present bills that they were working on, to be a resource and sort of an opportunity for folks to connect and learn and ask questions. And if we ran out of time, to know who to ask further questions to. But there's also been some really cool suggestions by my co-chair that we could have sort of a touch and learn. Imagine, 7th or 8th grade, your river corridor, like having a watershed.
Yes, we need the table, guys. We got to get the river
having
table.
A water table, because water is what we get with climate change. We don't get as much fires, although we've had some. We're getting a lot of water. And so to really understand, how we can work with water in a way that might be most cost effective and truly resilient, as opposed to doing some things that maybe we've done in the past that didn't work so well. So those are the 4 agenda items. And leadership, am I forgetting anything?
No, you got it.
All right,
You
so
nailed
first
it.
up is, thank you. First up is the priorities. Seems like a lot of people have them, but I will pass them out
We went around the
anyway.
table, so if
I'll
folks
take
are.
one out.
Yeah.
I think I put yours on the table.
Beyond the table. So for people who might be watching, there are 5 top areas. There's the improve community resilience, under which there are 5 bullets. There's one focused on policies to reduce the risk of flood damage. One focused on developing a climate resilience and mitigation fund. And to be clear, there are emergency funds out there. The question is the language behind them geared in such a way that they're really accessible? And are we actually putting money into them?
And I also want to.
Can you just state your name?
Hi, I'm Mike Berwicki from Putney. I also want to make sure it's expansive enough, excuse me, to include things like what happened in agriculture this spring, where we had a freeze that killed 90% of a lot of the seed crops around I think they call them, but are apples, peaches, and also how much the wet inhibited farmers from just getting into their fields to cut hay. And there's a lot of farmers that only had 1 cutting of hay, so they're buying hay now. This is the result of climate. So I hope that's included when we talk about how do we help people who've been affected by climate.
Good point. Molly?
And to add, Molly Burke, to add on to that, loggers are also being impacted hugely.
I would encourage to take sorry.
It's okay. So to elaborate a little bit on Mike, Chip Troiano, so all the valuable river bottom farmland, which really supplied a lot of our vegetables to the state, was ruined. Crops were completely ruined by the flood in July. And those farmers not only couldn't sell anything, but our stores suffered as a result of not having that produce. So that's part of what Mike was elaborating on.
Yeah, so this is a great moment for me to highlight that in this document, we have in parentheses mentioned bills. As we all know, bills, when they're first introduced, are a starting point, and that's how the committee then gets to a much better policy by taking testimony and having those discussions and debates about what really makes the most sense. So I would encourage, we talked about this as a leadership team, whether or not to put bill numbers in, because then it seems like maybe we're saying that's the one. But the reality is, I think there are like 8 or 9 bills related to flood damage. So the challenge here, I think this year, and the opportunity is really to sift through the good ideas that are out there and create what makes the most sense at the end of the day when we all have to vote. So,
And Representative Stebbins, could I just raise a point in there? I think she's
Yes,
not.
please.
Oh, good. Oh, good. If you are someone who is already seeing things in the priority document that you are a leader on, or that you think is missing and you'd like to be a leader on, if there is a topic within here that you are jazzed about and you would like to be your committee person to follow that issue, that would be of great help to us, because to Representative Stebbins' point, especially around flood resiliency this year, it's going to be a lot more information than we've gotten. Like, there's not one path forward because there were so many different implications from the summer flooding that it's going to be extremely helpful to us as a caucus to just be on the same page. So if you're someone who's following one of these bills closely that's listed in the priorities document or a topic that's kind of vaguely referenced in here, it would be very helpful if you're able to bring back updates and information. So that's very helpful to hear.
Yeah, building off of that, I mean, think about flood damage. It impacted businesses, so that's Economic Development Committee. It impacted our roads, that's transportation. It impacted our farms, that's ag. It's definitely in the environment and energy. It also impacts our government choices. So it's GovOps. My point being here, this is a really great year. You know, we're starting with, please join us and speak up and participate, because it's going to be a lot of figuring air traffic control to figure out what's moving and what makes the most sense and how can we carve out the best thing for Vermonters.
May I speak to that?
Of course.
Thank you. So many of you have heard about our flood recovery omnibus bill. H 723 now has a number. There are many, many items in there that I think the Climate Solutions Caucus could get on board with. And so I had hoped and do still hope that that we might endorse or provide feedback on the content of that bill at some juncture. So I'll leave it there for now, but thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. And we did not have a bill number, but also we went back and forth. You know, there's been a lot of conversation about what is the Climate Solutions Caucus. We've had people say they think it's just emissions reduction. I think that's probably what it was when it was first formed. But now that we know we need to reduce emissions and figure out how to support Vermonters as we see the impacts of climate, I don't think it's just emissions reduction. It's also mitigation and resilience. So to that point, there are parts of 723 that I think are probably, if I'm channeling my fellow leadership correctly, that are probably outside of the realm of the Climate Solutions Caucus. So I signed on to the fact that we should have a rental disclosure, requirement, because I think that makes sense. That may not make sense within the Climate Solutions Caucus.
No.
So that's why, and this is great feedback. That's why we should talk about how to incorporate the pieces that make sense within this caucus.
Thank you. And the bill is likely to be and is being broken up into many smaller vehicles. But I have said, and I will continue to say, that climate change killed people in my community this summer. So not to bring the hammer down, but it's real now, and it will continue to be real for all of us. So thank you.
Agreed. So I would ask that you take a look at that top bullet, improve community resilience, just keeping an eye on the time, 1228. Under this, we also have proposals for municipal planning and resilience grants, since so much of this is falling on our towns, our rural towns, our communities that may be totally volunteer staffed. So how do we really actually support them? And then, we have this phenomenal opportunity with the Inflation Reduction Act to make sure that we can harness as many of those dollars as possible. So how do we make sure that we're setting up the state and our municipalities and our towns to harness that? So that's related to H 586. And then also, this was a priority that was identified last year, advanced thermal energy networks, that's H 669. So those are some of the areas under community resilience. The original sponsor of last year's bill is actually Representative Cortez, although H 669 is a slight modification of that based off of a lot of stakeholder feedback this past summer. So second, we have, as a second broad category, I mentioned there are 5, hold fossil fuel companies accountable. I don't think we have a bill number for this, but this will probably go to judiciary. Third, we have modernized the renewable energy standard, which is why I was late today, because we were hearing testimony, again, based off of the working group process that occurred this summer. Fourth, we have Reform Act 250. I think there's been a lot of conversation about this and how it intersects with housing, housing of all types, but affordable housing. And then fifth, under the broad categories, is invest in climate-friendly transportation solutions. And we do have a bill number now for the
693.
693.
It's also about mitigation and resilience, emissions reduction.
And then we have a slew because there are so many things that relate to climate resilience and mitigation and emissions reductions, a slew of other policies of interest. It is not to denigrate them, but we do have to prioritize given that we have 3.5 months essentially. So if anyone has any initial feedback, happy to hear it. Otherwise, you can certainly reach out to any of the 5 leadership team. And per what my co-chair said, we're really looking for, support and coordination and collaboration. This is a lot. But we also know Vermonters need it.
Can you list those 5?
Yes. Improve community resilience.
No, I'm sorry. The 5 leaders.
Thank you.
She was ready to go.
I was. We've only been talking about it since like July. So co-chair, Senator White, co-chair, Representative Stebbins.
I believe he asked you to list this.
Okay. Representative Mike Rice, Representative Molly Burke, and Senator Andy Perchlik, who is in a committee. I think it's a meeting. It's a meeting today that he could not get out of.
Thank you.
And we, I don't think we have a set number of how many folks we would have on a leadership team. If you were a part of this many years ago, it used to just be 2 co-chairs, like with former Representative, now State Secretary Sarah Copeland-Hanzas. So this number of people does not mean we always have to have this number of people or this role. So please, if you're interested, don't think about it as there has to be 5 people. We're very open to more folks participating.
The other piece is to what Jonathan Williams was saying and channeling Representative Dolan, who I think for the since she's been here, she's always said, there's a subcommittee focused on resilience and water and biodiversity. There are also opportunities. Sometimes it's helpful to have a smaller group of people work as a subcommittee. If there's a certain subcommittee area, like flooding within communities or pollination, if there's a certain subcommittee area that some of you are really interested in and wanting to focus on, that, although I understand people go, oh my gosh, another committee, that can be a very effective way to move things forward, particularly since we are the largest issues-based caucus in the building. There are 180 reps and senators, and we're over 95, I think, members. So it's a little different than, a 15-member caucus.
May I speak very briefly to the pollinator?
Please, it is on the list.
Under other issues, Robin Chestnut Tangerman. And the now has a number, 706. Many people in this room are sponsors of it. It's a bill that will ban the sale and use of neonicotinoids, which have a very negative impact on pollinators and bees. There's actually a group of 13 advocacy organizations who have been working on this under Protect Our Pollinators. I think the time is now because it's modeled on a bill that New York State has just passed and to ban neonics, and New York has the size and the economic clout to actually drive the development and marketing of alternatives, which Vermont on its own couldn't do. So I think supporting New York and enjoying the benefits of their legislation this is a great time to do it and a great opportunity. Certainly talk to me if you have questions.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I do a similar comment on a couple of things I'm working on that interest people adjacently. Tristan Roberts, representative from Halifax. Comment similar to Robin's. I'm been delving into chemicals of concern statute, and I know a number of people are doing work in that area, but it's been sort of hard for me to understand who's actively doing what. So please just talk to me if you're interested or working in chemicals of concern right now. Also, environmental justice. broadly and working on something around that. And so I'd love to connect with anyone.
Other comments? Yes.
Phil Pouch, representative from Heinsberg. Thank you, Representative Stebbins. This is very good to have sort of focus us. It would be good as we continue with this caucus to get quick updates like, okay, this bill is moving. Obviously, probably all of this won't happen, but we'll try to make as much. But as things start to move forward, just sitting on the sideline, it's hard to see all the moving pieces. But it'd be nice to come back to this and say, here are 3 bills that are, in committee to make decisions or whatever, so we can work on that. So.
Can I, Bill? That is Representative Pouch. That is such a good point. And one thing we just talked about at the leadership meeting on Wednesday was in the past, we've done a bill tracker, which has been a very helpful tool. My understanding is we agreed and we have an intern who will be reformatting that. Luckily, Representative Stebbins had a whip smart intern who did it last year. So hopefully we'll be able to repeat that this year.
Right. Thank you.
So I am going to pass the baton on to the next agenda item to Representative Rice.
Yeah, so I think just speaking to the committee, who's going to sort of serve as our liaisons on committees, rather than going around the room and having people volunteer and taking the time to do that. I think if you are interested in sort of serving in that kind of increased role, providing that communication between your committee and this caucus, willing to help provide information that from bills that are before your committee to members of the caucus who might have questions, please just reach out directly to me, and then we'll come back at the sort of between now and the next meeting in 2 weeks and have firmed that those roles up. And next, I think I just want to make sure that we have time for advocates who are in the room to stand up and introduce yourselves so that everybody who's present understands the folks who are in the building working on all these priority issues. Starting perhaps over here.
Me? Okay. Johanna Miller, Joey. I lead the Energy Climate Program at the Vermont Natural Resources Council. Sorry, Laura. And one of the things that I get to do, which is really fun, is to help support the network of town energy committees in Vermont. I'm the appointed environmental rep on the Vermont Climate Council, working on a variety of different issues, including transportation in large part. And very much looking forward to partnering with you on many of the priorities that we all share this session. It's a big deal this session. And we're happy to host members of the Climate Solutions Caucus. It's an informal networking session if people are into it, healthy and inspired. 445, the NRC's office is about a half block on the other side of the State House. We'll live in Baldwin. Thanks, Representative.
Good afternoon. My name is David McCalden, and I'm with Third Act Vermont. And thank you, Representative Berkey, for introducing us earlier. We have a group of us here, and I've been taking the lead on the divestment bill. It's currently pending before the House Government Ops and Military Affairs Committee, and I'm very pleased that Representative Berkey is the champion of that bill. So if anybody has questions about divestment, we'd be pleased to address those questions. Thank you.
David, I think when we met with Beth and Gabrielle, what I heard them mention was they have a mailing list of 1,500 active members. So this is a group to work with.
Yes. Over on the other side of the line.
Start in the middle. I'm Julie Walsh, Climate and Energy Program Director at VPIRG, working a lot on the Renewable Energy Standard, Climate Superfund Act, and almost anything else touching on energy or the sort of climate energy nexus.
Tom Hughes, Senior Strategist with VPIRG, and working on all sorts of climate-related and other environmental policies.
Hey everyone, I'm Lauren Hurl, Executive Director of Vermont Conservation Voters, and work on, if there's an environmental issue, you can feel free to talk to me. We put out the common agenda that hopefully you all saw yesterday, but I try to be kind of air traffic control for everything, so if I can be a resource to put you to the right experts.
Hi, my name is Josh Ferguson. I'm VPIRG's Climate and Energy Associate, doing a lot of statewide organizing for our climate and energy priorities this fall. It's nice to meet you all.
Hi, I'm August. I'm interning with VPIRG, and I'm basically just taking notes on all these things. So if you would like notes or anything, please let me know.
Hi all, Jordan Hayden. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a climate campaign manager at VPIRG. If ever you have questions about pizza or tech for these meetings, I'm your gal, let me know. I also just want to make one quick plug about something we have coming up. It is a press conference happening in support of the Climate Superfund Act, aiming to hold big oil and gas companies accountable for their fair share of the climate crisis. So we would love to see you there. It's happening next Tuesday at 12:15 p.m. in the Cedar Creek Room. If you have any questions, happy to chat afterwards. My colleague Josh and I are going to pass around some 2-pagers so you can learn more about the bill. Thank you.
Anybody else over there?
Hi, I'm Peter Sterling, Executive Director of Renewable Energy Vermont. I'm also the legislature's appointment to the Climate Council on Clean Energy. I have a letter we wrote to the Speaker and Pro Tem on the high-level points of renewable energy standard reform, as well as information if you want it before you leave. Thank you so much for doing all the work that you're doing.
I'm Jonathan Dowds. I'm the Deputy Director of that, and I share people's priorities.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the end of the agenda. So just since we.
There was one other thing, which was just if you guys wanted to talk through, and we also don't have to, if you guys actually want like 5.5 minutes before you get back to your next committee meeting, we could do that too. But just thinking about how we want to approach the future Thursday, it's every other week, opposite the Women's Caucus, and roughly about a half hour. So bill updates we heard, but in the past, we've also had sort of FYIs about certain topics so that people, before a bill might go to the floor, there's a little bit more background information in terms of, what the policy was and what the policy is being proposed to change, that sort of thing. But if there's certain things like a water table that you guys are interested in, now is when to do it because we have to start getting speakers and planning.
I think it would be helpful as we start to move bills along too, if we had updates from both bodies, from the House and Senate, to make sure we're working on in common cause and moving things ahead. So I think we have one senator here today. And I know your time is.
Is it just me or who's the other senator?
Go Essex! Chief Becca. We have this
Irene's
two
in
of you,
there?
but
Go Senator Renner.
I feel like it's really important for us to be on the same page as we try to move, and especially with our messaging.
You're exactly right. Well said.
She'll take care of that.
All right.
And Senator Renner.
Representative, last year, we coordinated with several legislators on just information sessions on the Affordable Heat Act. If there are other topics that you think would be of interest to your constituents, and we can help pull together information sessions hosted by legislators, either in your region. We only have a limited capacity, but if your constituents are particularly interested in like the Climate Superfund, renewable energy standard, and resilience bills, if that's something that you would like to learn more about, or your constituents want to sort of say that the advocate community would love to, explore that with you and be helpful if we can. Thanks for all you're doing.
And I don't mean this as any disrespect to the advocates, since I was one, but obviously, advocates can be a resource, but they also come with their own viewpoint. And so we bring them in and we work with them, and thank you so much. But it's always good, especially for people watching, to keep in mind that we also, ultimately sift all this information and the testimony and come up with what we think makes the most sense for our constituents. All right, I think everybody would like to actually go have 10 whole minutes. You do have action items. 1, do you want to serve on your committee as a representative? 2, are there certain things you want to do or be involved in leadership? And 3, do you have any particular interests in every other Thursday meetings? Anything you want covered? Thank you so much.
Way to go,
Thank you.
representative Stebbins, first meeting. Look at us go.